Good morning, Rabbi Isai. We're holding on the bottom of the Vav, Amud Beis. Four lines from the bottom. Do we really have, so what was the idea? I don't know if I finished the idea. The idea is that it's all dependent on Bezdin's mind. Whatever they decide. This carbon tamid is not going to be a tamid until the last moment. They'll decide when it happens. Their heart decides, their mind decides. And therefore, when these animals are in the pen, they're not a tamid. When do they become a carbon tamid? When the kohen shechts it. Up to that point, by Aleph Nisan, they're not tamid. Take them, do whatever you want with them. However, the problem is, say in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Tmidim shelo yitzuchu letzibur, those extra Tmidim, carbon tamid that are not necessary, Rabbi Shimon they nivdim Tmimim. According to Rabbi Shimon, and that's the one that we're trying to find a good answer for, you cannot redeem them when they're whole. They have to go to the Kevis Land Park, befall a mum, and then redeem them. But we're talking about Rabbi Shimon, ain't nivdim Tmimim. Va'oid. There's a question. You have these two goats of Shavuos. Shavuos has 4 korbanos. First, he brings the two loaves of bread. That we said is like the main carbon, the main thing, accompanied by 2 shlamim, the cheesecake, whatever. But then he also brings the 2 serum. He said, why do you bring 2 goats? 2 goats is for the tum in the Beis Hamikdash. What's the second one for? For the tum in the Beis Hamikdash. Why do you need 2? Maybe he was tamei in between. So maybe 400. Hashem is compassionate about Klal Yisrael's money. Only 2. So now, Nizrek Dam Sharishain, if they perform Zrika on the carbon number 1, Sheni Lamu Ba, why in the world do you have to do Zrika for the second one? So he explains, Al Tuma Sha'ira Ben Zrika Shazelazeh. Perhaps somebody became tamei in the 5 minutes, the 10 minutes between the 2 zrikas, maybe then. But Akal the Gemara says, so let's go back to now that we know the question, it's a little better. The whole question was if the guy is over here in this place, between Zrika 1 and Zrika 2. Can this animal give you a kapara on a isser that you did after the shchita? I say there was pashut that if the tumah happened over here, certainly the carbon's going to come and give you a kapara, even though it was already named and he already has a sign on him that he's a chatas. Yeah, there was already a hafrasha, there was already hagdasha. He's called a chatas. So that answers our question. From over here, you see that the animal, the carbon that was already designated and put aside as a chatas, does have an ability to forgive afterwards. So the Gemara says, "Dilma im tim tzaloi makamar." You're right. There's no raya. The reason why he didn't ask the question from this stage, and he only asked it from this stage, is because he was saying, "Intim tzaloi." If you say this stage is good, the animal does work. What about this far stage, way ahead? It's all the way after all the zrika of the first one, but before the zrika of the second one. Does it also work at that point? In other words, he wasn't sure about this step right over here. So don't ask me a question that you see from here that it works. He still wasn't sure. Itmar. New sugya, brand new sugya, Rabbi Isa. This is a little tricky. In other words, just to explain very carefully over here. Let me ask you something. When you have a mind to bring a carbon for your friend, yeah, we said that's called Shinui Bailam. The Shinui Kodesh and Shinui Bailam. Meaning, you change from a Chatas to a Shlamim. You change from Ruvain to Shimon. Those are the 2 things. The Kohen has a bad thought in his mind. Instead of thinking to himself that it's a Shlamim, he thinks to himself it's a Chatas. He's thinking to himself it's a Chatas. Instead of him doing it for the guy with the red beard, he thinks to himself he's doing it for the guy with the blue turban. Shinui Bailam. What does it mean, Shinui Bailam? So we have to explain it. We have to explain a little bit. Shinui Bailam means I want the guy with the blue turban to achieve the kapara. I want him to have the forgiveness from that animal. But over here it's a little different. That's why I'm pointing it out. Rashi says right away, we're not talking about a toida only. It could be any carbon in the world. It's just an example. What did he do? Over here, he didn't do what we just described, that he wanted his friend to get a carbon, the achievement of the carbon toida. Over here, he said that this toida should be his friend's. It's different. It's very similar. Let me show you Rashi. It's what I'm saying. I understand. It's a little dakas dik. Let's see Rashi. Maybe Rashi will explain it better. Toida sheshachta l'shem toidas chavera. Lo sheshachta menashi skaper ba mishena belel. He wasn't thinking that Shimon should get the kapara. Ve'ein zeh shinu bailam el shinu kodesh. Over here, it's similar to changing the type of carbon it is rather than the owner over here. Why? They both, Reuven had a carbon toida, Shimon had a carbon toida, acheres. But here's the thing here, to explain a little bit. It's similar to saying that this chatos over here, instead of it being for blood, it should be for the chaylev. I'm saying instead of it, this carbon. So basically, instead of the carbon being for Reuven, it should be for Shimon. Not that Shimon should get a kapara from it. I'm changing the designation, the type, the carbon. Instead of Reuven, it should go to Shimon. Rabbi Makshera, Rav Chizda Amar Psula. Machlokes, if it's kosher or not. Rabbi Makshera, what's the pshat? What's the difference here? Toida l'shem toida nishchata. The bottom line is, you're right. You messed up a little bit. You put this animal on Shimon instead of on Reuven, but it was shechted for the right one. It was for a toida. You need to do it for the right person. Amar Rabba, how do you know I'm right that it's kosher? At the end of the day, we shechted a toida shlamov. So that's the halach that we had the other day. This pasuk is not coming to tell you that if you shechted for somebody else, you're yaitza. The pasuk is coming to tell you that if you shechted toida with the wrong intent, you said this toida is a shlamim, it's kosher. Shlamim shenishchatu, the shem toida psulim. If you remember, I gave an example of making a adama on an apple, which you yaitza, but if you make ha'etz on a cucumber, you're not yaitza. In other words, a toida is in the category of shlamim. A shlamim is not in the category of toida. This is Chazarah by saying toida kuri shlamim, ben shlamim kurim toida. Now, shlamim l'shem toida psula. Since a shlamim is not called a toida, so if you say the shlamim is a toida, no good. Ha-toida l'shem toida sheira. So the Gemara is medayik. It's only because you're saying shlamim is a toida. That's why it's possible. But what if you say a toida is a toida, like our case, which is a little bit of a stretch, because in our case you're putting a toida on somebody else. You're saying that my toida, Reuven's toida, should be for Shimon's toida. Kosher. And the Gemara says, my love the chavrei, even for a friend. Loi, didei. What does that mean, didei? This guy, he broke out of Alcatraz, and he swam across the ocean to get home. So he did two things. He came out of jail, and he also went over the ocean. So now he has to bring two taidas. And in those two taidas, he messed up. Like he had to bring a taida, a chatas for his chaylev, and then he brought it for the dam. But don't mix up a case of his taida for his friend's taida. So when it says, so you tell me that it's possible if you do it for your friend. If you're already telling me a case of shlamim that by mistake you messed up, instead of saying shlamim, you said taida is possible, I have a better case. Listen to taida shem taida. Forget going from one type of carbon to another. Within taida itself, I have a case where it's possible. If I do a taida for Reuven and I say it's for Shimon, it's possible. Because you can shlamim shem taida. And then everybody would know that shlamim would be possible. That if I do shlamim and I say it's taida, then it's possible. If taida to taida is possible, so certainly shlamim to taida is possible. No, not true. Shlamim shem taida didei yitzrichlei. No. It's not true. I would think that if somebody says shlamim instead of taida, it would be good. Why? Because if somebody says the opposite, Toida for Shlamim, it is good. So Shlamim for Toida, yeah? Toida is in the category of Shlamim. So if I say Toida, it works even though it's a Shlamim. Even though if I say that this should be a Shlamim instead of Toida, it works. But I do the opposite, it doesn't work. I need to tell you that Chiddush. Here, even I just got mixed up. But don't bring me a raya that mixing up somebody else's Toida with your Toida is okay. I would think that it would work. That if you say that this shlamim is a taida, you would work. No, Kamashmal doesn't work. So we're going to learn now 7 halachas. Rava says 7 halachas. Fascinating thing happened yesterday. These are all the halachas, and this is taken from the end of the sugya. It's a very, very interesting thing. Omar Rava, here we go, one by one. Chatos sheshachta l'shem chatos. If you have 2 chatos, one is for chaylev, one is for dam, you say that this chatos number 1, instead of chaylev, I did an aver for dam. I wanted the kohen messed up. You told the kohen, look, this chatos called Reuven, I wanted to come to forgive on my chaylev, and the kohen messed up. He said it's for the dam, which are both chayev and chatos. Sheira. Gemara is going to bring a pasuk. But if the kohen messed up and said that this chatos should be an oila, l'shem oila, psulo, what do you do with it? Put it in the garbage, burn it. My daima says Rava v'shochat oisol lechatos Omer Achmona. You have to have intent for chatos. Very chatos, l'shem chatos nishchata. He had the right intent of the chatos, just for what it is. The chaylev and dam he messed up. Okay, but it's for chatos. Caution. L'shem oila. No. If you go to another category of a carbon psula, next halacha. So that would be this one right over here. Chatos shochat l'shem chatos. Now we're doing almi. If you shechted for another owner, what is that called? Shinui bailim. Psula. Just to remind the oilam, that's at the one avodah called zriko. But when you're doing zrika, you had in mind for another owner. Or when you're doing shchita, you had in mind that the zrika is going to be for another owner. But if somebody designated an oila, and I say that this chatos should be for somebody else, my time of a chibur olav. Olav chaver during the day. If you change it to your friend, so your friend has to be similar to you. It's only when somebody is chayiv a kapara like yourself. We'll see a little bit more later. If you shech the chatas on somebody for somebody else who doesn't have an avera, so to speak, it's possible. Why? Everybody has at least one little avera. Says the Gemara. V'amarava. Chatas v'chaperes l'chayav yasei. Chatos could come and give a forgiveness on the assays. Like we mentioned yesterday, assay, a mitzvah assay, could be a lava nitikla assay, could be also veishav segzela, certain things that have to do with an assay, mikavachoymer. It's pashut. Why? Achayav increases mechaperes, if this chatas is so powerful, to come and forgive you for something that you did b'shoigig, by mistake. But if you did it b'mezid, you get krisos, kares, so certainly it has the ability to forgive on very smaller averos. What? You're telling me that this chatos could forgive things that you're chayiv in asay? In other words, it's in the same category. These averos are in the same category. It's the same min. We just established that if you shech the chatos for somebody that's chayiv a chatos, that's one category, so you'd be puzzled. But if you have in mind for the oila shabai, it's kosher. Why? It's a different category. So says the Gemara, mikibel or mikapra, mikufi mikapra. So we had this concept before, mikufi mikapra. This is the main avera that the chatos cannot take care of the main assays. But there's mekufia. There's like the secondary, the little ones, the little guys. So it goes like this. If a person set aside an oila, so then those averas, the chatas doesn't do anything for it. But if the guy didn't set aside an oila for it, So the chatos is going to take control and be mechapet those little baby averis, whatever they're called, the mekufi averis, the ones that float on the top, the secondary ones. What happens if the chatos takes over and takes those little guys? Then it becomes possible. You hear what's going on? Since the chatos cannot do other averis, and you didn't take care of them yourself with the oila, and it grabs onto them, so it becomes possible. If you did designate a carbon oila, then it wouldn't become possible. Another halach that we learned: if somebody messes up, the kohen messes up by the oila, and he thinks to himself, the wrong machshava, I'm making this a shlamim, not a oila. It's also to continue with that thought with the rest of the process, with the rest of the avodas. You just get back on track, and you do what you need to do. You messed up, and then we said it's Yisod for life. Iba Yisei Mekra, Iba Yisei Mesvara. Iba Yisei Mekra, you can learn this from a pasuk. Moses V'Sechet Ishmar, we said a whole pasuk, that the pasuk starts with a neder, goes off to Nadava, and then we said, what's pshat? Because this is a neder. Why does the Torah say Nadava? Because if you mess up of the neder, you don't do the neder, it becomes a Nadava. Iba Yisei Mesvara, I love this. Mishum Deshani Ba. If you mess up, you should continue messing up. You mess up. So then you take control and you go right there. Kideresh Pirka, like we said in the beginning of the parak. V'amarav, another halacha. Oila haba lacher misa. If we had the case of the woman Nebuch, she died right after she brought her chatas, but she didn't live long enough to bring her oila. So her yarshim bring the oila. Shalom shina kodesh psula. Let's go back there. Maybe the oil needs a little refresher. If the kids bring the carbon and the kohen messes up and thinks that this is not an oil, this is a shlamim, it is possible. But if the kohen messes up and says it's not for the woman who gave birth, but it's for this guy that I don't know what, he needs an oil, they didn't mess up. Why? There's no ownership after she dies. She died, finished. No, there is a concept called bringing a carbon for somebody after death, and that kohen just messed it up. When he says, what? The Yoshim have to bring another carbon. But the question is, Davke Kamar, did he mean Davke Kamar Mar Yishbal Nachar Misa Uboy Lasuya Oy Lachrite? Did he mean seriously that there is considered ownership after death? Ememela, the Yoshim have to bring another carbon? Or the pshat is that the Yoshim get a kapara with that carbon. But they don't have to bring another carbon. Omerlei, Davke Kamar. No, the Yoshim have to bring another carbon. V'amarava. Another halacha. Oila dairinhi. What's an oila? A gift. And it's a gift to Hashem. After you get a kapara on your aveira, you bring that also. Omerava oila dairinhi. Hechidami. Ida leket tshuva. Zevachim te'eva. I don't understand. Why are you bringing this oila? If you didn't do tshuva, it's mamish. It's a strong language here. You did one aveira. You didn't do tshuva. You did a b'shoigig. You didn't bring a carbon. Zevach rishayim te'eva. Hashem despises the carbon of a rasha. If you did do tshuva, hatanya over a mitzvah asay v'shav. If a person was over in a mitzvah asay and he did tshuva, you don't need to bring another carbon. There's a mechila on the spot. Elo shmaminat doirenu. You see from here that it's a gift. It's an extra. You don't have to, but it's a good idea to bring it. Chatos almi mechaperes. Oilo lachar doiren simin. So now you see what I'm saying? Everything we just learned is in these words right over here. Let me just show you again. So here it is. Here's everything put together. Chatos almi. Almi is really for two different things. Mechaper, oilo, la'acher. These are the 7 halachas we just learned. And, One more. Sorry, Dairin. Oilo is a Dairin. Simen. Tain name hachi. Omar Reb Shimon chatos lama ba. Lama ba? What do you mean, why do you bring a chatos? L'chaper. The person doesn't have air, he brings the chatos. Elo. Lama ba lifnei oila. Why does it come before a oila? Le praklit shenichnas. You have the, how do you say praklit in English? Not a lawyer, representative, I like that. That's great. An advocate. Beautiful. L'praglit shenichnas, ritzo praglit, if the advocate was he accomplished, nichnas dar nachrav, then you bring a gift to smooth things over. Chutz min hapesach v'achata. So we learned in the Mishnah that there are two korbanos that if you mess up, there's nothing you can do about it. Over here, you don't say, let's continue on, let's go. The carbon pesach and a chatos. If the kohen messes up and he says, this is not a carbon pesach, this is a carbon oila, this is not a carbon chatos, this is a shlamim, and the story. Toss it. Pesach ben olam. How do I know this halacha by carbon pesach that you cannot continue? D'chsiv, shamor is chodesh haviv v'sisa pesach. Psukim, easy stuff now. It says in the pasuk, v'sisa pesach, you shall do a pesach. You call as yoyis l'shem pesach. Every step of the way must be for a pesach, and if you have in mind 1 second that it's a oila, it's gone. Ashkechon shinu kodesh. So that's okay because vasisa pesach, that's the asiyah, that's the different avodah, the different thing. So don't mess up in the avodah and call it something else. Ashkechon shinu kodesh, shinu ba'alam and where do we see over here this idea of messing up? Also, the ownership messes it up completely. Says Gemara, d'chsiv amartem zevach pesach hu shnei zvicha l'shem pesach. Once again, we have another pasuk in saying the same thing that you cannot mess up in the carbon pesach. Now we have this concept you see on the screen. If I can't use this pasuk for the same thing again, I already have it. What do I need another pasuk? Let me use it for something very, very similar, different but similar. I don't need it anymore to teach me that I cannot mess up the type of carbon. So I'll use it. I cannot mess up the owner. Ashkechon mitzvah. Okay, there's a few steps here. Like we said in our Mishnah, regular carbon, it's not the best. You're not getting the top mitzvah, but you continue going. You won't have a kapara. You have to bring another one. But this carbon is a good carbon. So Ashkechon mitzvah, that's all I know so far. Lakim minala. How do I know it's possible? Throw it in the garbage or burn it, whatever you want to call it. The second pasuk. There's another pasuk. Tells me that it's garbage. Since I need this pasuk for something else, as we're going to see in a second, so I don't have it available to tell me that you have to burn it and get rid of it. What does Rav Nachman say? Oh, this is a famous halacha. You put your carbon pesach on the side. Everybody's so excited we're going to go to the Beis Hamikdash. What does this little guy do? Runs away. So this guy, he needs a carbon pesach. So what does he do? He buys a second carbon pesach. What always happens when you buy a carbon pesach, second one? 3 minutes after you shachted, Shalom Aleichem, here he is. Somebody looked at the chip and they found, oh, this is yours. Now what do? Shekarev shlamim. Carbon pesach is literally, it's in the category of shlamim, and therefore you can bring it as a shlamim. I already used the entire pasuk to tell me this halacha that I could take a carbon pesach and do it as a shlamim. And it says in the pasuk, how do I learn it from here? I don't understand something. A carbon pesach comes from goats and from sheep. Why does it say bakar, cattle? There's a Rashi, it's kedai to remember this, just to engrave it in our memory, because it's very yisaidisdik. He says, why? A shlamim could be a male, female, a goat, and a cow, and a sheep. It could be anything. And then he goes just to describe, other things not. Every carbon is either this or that. L'mashal, he says, so to remember, they're always male. Asham also, not only a noila. Chatas is always, and he says we should give the chatas from now on like a skirt. Chatas hukvu b'nekevos. There's one type of chatas that we learned in the beginning of Sechta, but hukvu b'scharm kigun sari nasi. The king brings a zachar. But to remember, again, oila is always a male, a chatas is always female. Shlamim is everything. Both. And Mamela fits right into the pasuk. Zevach bakr, that the carbon pesach should be a shlam. You're right, this pasuk of Zevach Pesach tells me that if you have an extra carbon pesach after pesach, make it as a shlamim. So where am I learning from? Shamar is chodesh ha'aviv. And what does it say at the end of the pasuk? V'asisa pesach tells me l'mitzvah b'shini kodesh, that if you mess up in a carbon pesach, you say that this is not a carbon pesach, this is a oila, then it's a mess up, but we only have a mitzvah now. But we don't know that you have to toss it out yet. And now I have another pasuk to teach me that if you mess up in ownership, you also mess up the Korban Pesach. Here's the pasuk just to see. We have the two psukim here. Shomer Chodesh Aviv is for Shinu Kodesh. And the extra word who is la'akev bein hacha v'hacha. You toss them out. You can't use it anymore. Vashkon zvicha. It's a zevach in this pasuk. The zevach for the shchita. How do I know? Kabbalah halacha zrika. Hoyel v'gali gali. Once I see this halacha by Shinu Kodesh that it includes all four avodas, so also by Shinu Bailam includes all four avodas. Rav Ashi Amar Hoyel v'gali gali lo yamrin. I don't like that. He says El avodas min on Saturday. I know all the avodas. The chsiv zois haTorah lo yelev mincha. You guys remember the Kokeli song here. But what's missing here is, and that's really in the beginning of the sugya I should have told you, Korban Pesach is not on this list over here. It's not in that pasuk. So, so this is important. Rashi brings us down. Look at this. This pasuk of Kokeli, so to speak, has all the korbanos. The pasuk afterwards, Lamed Ches, says Lahagir is Korbaneim. From there I can learn out also what's missing in the top pasuk. Pesach, Bechor, and that's called Smuchim. So the Gemara, and so that second pasuk, that adds the ones that are missing. And the Torah says that these two psukim are connected. Like we already established, that you have to have the right intent for owner and for type of carbon. The mitzvah, you should definitely have that intent, and if not, you have to bring another carbon. But you continue going with this. There's no difference at what point of the avodah you did it. All four avodas. Fine. Now, Elahu lamali. But if you're already Rav Safar, who's learning from the who, that you need the shema. But over here we have a whole hekesh. You have these psukim. So why do you need the word who? It says the word who by Zevach Pesach who, and that to tell us that you have to toss out this Korban Pesach. Aval Asham, it's to teach you the who. By Asham, it's not like that. Never by who. Where does it say the word who? Asham who. I forgot to bring the pasuk again. It says the word who. I showed it to you the other day. Elacha aktarasi murim. The who comes at the end when it's already not important. It's important, but not. It doesn't ruin it. By Asham, if you don't bring the pieces of animal onto the mizbech, it's still kosher. So Mamela the Lishma doesn't ruin it. Not like a Korban Pesach where it ruins it. Rabbi Sai, have a wonderful day.
Merit the schus of spreading Torah throughout the world. Sponsor a shir today. MDYsponsor.com or sponsor at MDYDAF.com.